county assessor, Jeff Prang or Tony, is pick up the phone. We have staff members that are here to help, and my staff was working very, very hard when we were in the middle of the pandemic and we had EDD problems. We took hundreds upon hundreds of calls to put people back on their feet, get the monies that they needed when they were unemployed. So each office has done quite a bit, but our partnership is your partnership. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say thank you to allow me to be here. Again, I'm your Senator, Bob Archuleta, and ladies and gentlemen, can I bring up the assessor for the County of Los Angeles, representing 10 million people, Assessor Jeff Frank.
Thank you, Senator. As I say, 10 million sounds like a big deal, but that plus $6 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. But good morning and welcome to our event. And probably, I think I know what you're all thinking. How do we begin our morning with a little bit of excitement? Well, you hear a speech from the county property tax assessor. But for anybody who's confused about who I am and what I am, I'm delighted to welcome you and share a little bit of information about my office and provide quite a bit of resources to you through our program today. Today's resource fair is a one-stop event for any questions you may have related to property ownership. Before we get started today with our program, I did want to express my sincere appreciation to the many community partners who came out here and volunteered their time to provide these resources for you. My staff spent a lot of time thinking about every question you possibly can have, every need that you might have, and we have somebody here who can answer those questions. So please avail yourself of these resources. I did want to give special thanks to my good friends, Board of Equalization member Tony Vasquez and State Senator Bob Archuleta, who are my partners in government in providing a lot of services to all of you. So a round of applause to them. In just a minute, I also did want to thank the Office of County Supervisor Hilda Solis, who's represented here by Kimberly, Office of Assembly Member Lisa Calderon, the Hacienda Heights Community and Recreation Center, and the many, many community partners here that provide these resources. I particularly want to give a shout out to all of my staff and volunteers who, for my staff who was here, you outdid yourself. I'm really impressed with the work you did today, and I think everybody here is going to be impressed with the work you did as well. So after much conversation with a lot of residents throughout LA County, I found that it is really important to provide a series of these resource fairs to residents throughout the county to provide important updates on questions you may have about property ownership, about legislation that may impact your owning of property, and just to make sure that we do our best to demystify the property administrative system. People may not know it, but when it comes to owning property, there's many, many departments that have a different role. The kind of way it works, if you buy property, you report a deed with the registrar reporter. Then the registrar reporter sends me that deed, and I determine what the value of the property is. I do not set tax rates, and I do not collect taxes. After I'm done determining the value, I turn that data over to another department called the Auditor Controller. You've probably never heard of them. They're the ones who tell you how much you owe. And then they turn that data over to the Treasurer and Tax Collector. And you can tell what the Treasurer and Tax Collector does because it's in their name. They're the tax collector. They're the ones who collect taxes. And I just want to correct the Senator. I'm not the tax assessor. So never call and ask for the tax assessor. Because if you do, we don't know who you want. Do you want the tax collector or do you want the assessor? Are you concerned about your bill or the value of your property? Although I will say that 100% of the people get it wrong, so we'll figure it out with the calls. But it's always been my goal to offer and maintain the highest level of public service, and today is just one of many of those examples of our office responding to community needs and bringing available our services directly to you. I understand just how difficult it can be at times navigating the property tax system, which is why we designed this fair in order to address that confusion and to answer your questions. We know a lot of people have questions about trusts, about accessory dwelling units, about a new law called Proposition 19, which allows you to transfer your base year value, and it deals with inheritance of property. I will give a little commentary briefly on Prop 19. It's a dumpster fire, it's a total mess, and Tony and I are working really hard to try to figure it out. Sometimes when they do things up in Sacramento, they say, this is a great idea, but we're not going to try to figure out how it works. We'll just do it, and we'll let the guys down in LA County figure it out. And we're figuring it out. It just takes a little bit of time. Sometimes they get a little bit ahead of us. Today we have experts who are going to provide a lot of information on a number of issues, including alternative dwelling units, new construction, the parent-to-child transfers. What a really, really important issue that people don't think about, but is what do you do when there's the death of a property owner? That consumes an enormous number of the phone calls and emails my office gets. A lot of people have their property in trust and they think everything's on autopilot. My property's in trust, somebody died, I don't have to do anything. And then they get a supplemental tax bill and say, why did I get a supplemental tax bill? I had a trust. Well, a trust is not autopilot. There's other things you have to do, and we're going to talk about those things today. In addition, representatives from a number of other county departments that are adjacent to our department. The tax collector is here. The county planning department is here as well to also provide you information. Next few hours, you'll have the opportunity to listen and engage members of our office. We've been carving out a lot of time to answer your questions, and questions not answered here today, pick up our business cards and call us later on. So I don't want to take too much more of your time. I did want to give Tony a couple of moments to say a few words before we get deep into the program. But before I call Tony up, I did want to just, we couldn't be here today without the help of the Hacienda Heights Community Center, and I did bring a little tribute that I wanted to present to Michael Hamilton on behalf of the Community Center to thank him for playing host to us here today, because I don't think he's charging us very much money. Right? Thank you very much.
Yay!
Now I'm going to ask Tony Vasquez, who is a board member of the California State Board of Equalization. He is a state constitutional office. He sits on a 5-member board that has regulatory authority and oversight authority over all assessors and a number of other business and special property tax matters. I'll let Tony tell you a little bit more about that. He is a very close partner with assessors throughout the state to ensure that we deliver our services efficiently and fairly. He'll tell you a little bit more about his job. Please join me in welcoming Tony Vasquez.
Thank you. Listening to all these folks talk got me a little thirsty here, so let me get some water. First of all, let me just thank Jeff Prang, my assessor here, because I think the Senator Archuleta mentioned districts, and his has changed, so has mine. Up until, well, officially until this election coming up next week in November, I represent almost the whole county of LA. I have Ventura County currently, and a little sliver of San Bernardino, which is out there by Chino Hills, just that little piece of it. But after November, my district is just going to be the county of LA, because the county of LA now by itself is 10 million people. So I have the luxury, unlike some of my colleagues who, for example, Malia Cohen, who's on the 2nd district, she's going to take that little piece of Ventura that I had. So she literally goes from Ventura all the way up the coast to the border. So I think it's like Humboldt. I don't know what that last little, I think it's Humboldt is the last little county up north. It's like 30 different counties, assessors she has to deal with. It's just a huge district. Because at the end of the day, since there's 4 districts, each one of us represents 10 million people, because there's roughly 40 million people in the state of California. The difference is the county of LA is just so populated that I get away with just one now, and it's just Jeff Prang, who I happened to meet many, many years ago when he was actually the mayor of West Hollywood, and I happened to be the mayor of Santa Monica at the time. And so we go back some years, and we've been fortunate enough to advance our careers within government, but also more important, be able to work with people like your Senator Barbara Chuleta and Lisa Calderon. Actually, I met Chuck Calderon when I was teaching out here at Montebello many years ago when he first ran for assembly, and then he became the senator, and now his wife is the current assembly member for this area. But those relationships are real key, especially for you, many of you that are here today that are coming to this resource fair. When I was asked a few years ago by Jeff Prang, the assessor, if I wanted to participate, and I said, no, I'd love to, because one of the challenges I have, representing 10 million people, it's difficult to get out to meet all the folks. And like I said, I'm fortunate enough that I just have to deal with the county of LA. I don't know how Malia can get from Ventura all the way to Humboldt and do justice to that. Just geographically, the area is so huge to get to one to the other, and it's not like you can fly home. You literally have to drive. It's difficult to be, I don't think there's even I don't think you can even fly into Humboldt, or if it is, it might be one of these little small municipal airports. So that's a challenge. But moving forward, Jeff touched on one of the issues. As the State Board of Equalization, my responsibility is really three areas: property tax, alcohol beverage tax, and then tax on insurance. Those are the three principal things we do. And our job is primarily to make sure that you here in LA County, those of you that have property and are paying property tax, are not being overassessed, are paying your fair share, no different than somebody, let's say, up in San Francisco or down in San Diego, where our job is to make sure that it's equitable throughout the state of California. So we set policy and guidance to the assessors, and Jeff Prang, your assessor, has been real helpful in terms of giving us feedback as we do our surveys throughout the county, throughout the 58 counties in the state of California. And one of the things that's been a real challenge, and he kind of touched on it, was Prop 19. And for those of you that, I know there's some folks here in the real estate business, I don't think a lot of people really understood the impacts that's going to have on property owners. For example, I grew up in the West Side. I live in Santa Monica, but I grew up in the West Side, and many of folks that I grew up with, their parents were fortunate enough 30 years ago. They were then they were gardeners, and then they created this landscaping business and were smart enough to buy property, especially on the West Side 30 years ago, which was very affordable back then. But now we're sitting on properties that are worth, some of them in the millions. And upon their death, as they try to will it over, before they were able to, if they were fortunate to acquire 5 properties and they happen to have 5 children, they could will those over to their kids without a tax burden. Now with Prop 19, they're only going to be able to will one over to one of their children. And that one, they have to move into it, and it has to be their principal residence. If it isn't, they're going to be assessed. It's going to be a tax, and it's going to be a huge tax bill for a lot of those folks. So you're going to see a lot of properties that folks were able to acquire go up for sale because their kids are not going to be able to afford the taxes on them. And I don't think people understood when they voted for this, the impact that's going to have. And Jeff, myself, and a few others, and even the senator, as I've been speaking to him about this, I think hopefully there's support out there to bring that back before the voters, because the voters voted on it, so the only way we can change it, we have to put it back before the voters. Even the senator, with a lot of his great ideas, as a legislator, you can't change something like that that was voted on. It has to go back to the voters. And I think we need to rethink that one. Because I know if you personally don't own 5 properties, I'm sure you have friends or relatives that do, that were smart enough 20, 30 years ago to acquire properties, are now going to get hit very hard with a heavy tax bill as they attempt to will those things over. So that's kind of just in a nutshell one of the things that we're involved in. But moving forward, one of the things I wanted to share with you is that for many of you that are here, whether you have a small business or you have a large business, take advantage of the resources you have here. I notice there's a lot of tables out here with a lot of good people that are providing services for you, but then you have your representatives. You have your senator here. You have your assessor. Myself as a State Board of Equalization, and I believe there's reps here from your county person, Hilda Solis, and also your assembly person, Lisa Calderon. Make sure you get their contact information, because you never know, it may not be today, but down the road, you may need assistance or their service, and it's always good to make contact and have those relationships, because at the end of the day, that can be very helpful, whether it's for just your residents, issues that you may have, or your business, if you happen to have a business, or you maybe want to start a business. So take advantage of those relationships and those contacts that you could possibly make here today, throughout the day here at this resource fair. And with that, I just want to turn it back over to my assessor, but also wish all of you coming up this next month a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. You know, with this pandemic, I know a lot of us have been having a real tough time getting together, but now as things are starting to open up, take advantage of it, and want to wish you all a real good Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Board Member Vasquez. It's great to have the support of our elected officials in order to bring you an outstanding program. Before we continue, I'd like to bring up Hilda Solis' staff, Kimberly Olivares, to say a few words.
Hi everybody, my name is Kimberly Olivares. I work with LA County Supervisor Hilda Solis. If you live in any of the portions of the 1st District, including Hacienda Heights and most of the San Gabriel Valley, we are probably your county supervisor. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it here today, but she does send her regards, and thanks to Assessor Jeffrey Prang and his staff for putting this event together. We know that these resources that you're going to get today are very important, so I won't take too much of your time. Again, like I mentioned, we want to thank Assessor Prang for his work and his staff. We know that the work that the assessor does is very important, which is why Supervisor Solis, back in 2020, authored a motion that directed and established a pilot program with the assessor's office and Rio Hondo College to create a pipeline program for entry-level appraisers. We know that by creating more jobs in our communities of appraisers, you know, the job that the assessor does is very important, and there will be more people to do this important job. And we will also be creating jobs here in our own community at Rio Hondo College. So thanks to their work, your properties are getting assessed, and we are very happy to partner with them in such a great event like this one. Please feel free to come out and look at my table. I have a few other resources out there. Thank you so much again to the assessor and to everybody here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. I would like now to call up Ramon Luquin, representing Assemblymember Lisa Calderon.
Yay.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ramon Luquin. I'm the senior field rep and representative for Hacienda Heights for Assemblymember Lisa Calderon's office. I'll keep this brief as well. Like the senator and the board member mentioned, you know, this is all about relationships. So if you have any questions about the legislative process or any state resources, you can visit my booth in the back as well. And I really appreciate the assessor and his staff setting up this event and letting us attend and provide information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, the part that everybody's waiting for. Let's jump right into our first presentation, which will be on Proposition 19 and death of a property owner. Please welcome R.P. Stepanian and Clarence Amamita. Both R.P. and Clarence are supervisors in the Assessor's Ownership Services. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is R.P. Stepanian. I'm a manager in Assessor's Ownership Services Division. This morning, I'm joined by my colleague, Clarence Amameda. Today, we will be sharing some information on several topics that impact homeowners and families. First, we will discuss Proposition 19. Proposition 19 is a ballot measure that was approved by California voters in November 2020. It made significant changes to property tax relief programs for seniors, property owners with disabilities, and victims of natural disasters and wildfires. It also made changes to property tax savings program available to transfers between parent and children and grandparent and grandchildren. The first component of Proposition 19 came into effect on April 1st, 2021. It expanded the ability of seniors, property owners with disabilities, and victims of natural disasters and wildfires to sell their home, purchase a replacement home, and transfer their original home's lower tax base to their replacement home. What changes did Proposition 19 make to existing law? First, it allowed qualifying homeowners to transfer their original home's tax base to a replacement property located anywhere in the state. Whereas previously, the original home's tax base could only be transferred to a replacement property if it was located in one of the 10 participating counties. Second, under the old law, a qualified homeowner could only take advantage of this benefit once. Now, under Proposition 19, a qualified homeowner may do so up to 3 times. Third, under the old law, a qualified homeowner could only take advantage of this benefit if the value of their replacement home was less than or equal to the value of their original home. Now, under Proposition 19, they may transfer their original home's tax base to a replacement home of any value. However, there is a caveat. If you purchase a replacement home for more than you sold your original home for, you will still be able to transfer your original home's tax base to your replacement home. However, there will be an upward adjustment. The value difference between what you sold your original home for and what you repurchased your principal replacement home for will be added to the tax base that is transferred over from your original home to your replacement home. These calculations can be complicated, so we have created Proposition 19 calculators to help you estimate the new assessed value of your property. The calculators are located on Assessor's Proposition 19 webpage and are helpful tool if you plan on applying for a Proposition 19 benefit. Before moving on, I would like to mention 2 additional requirements for Proposition 19 base year value transfer benefit. First, the sale of original home and the purchase of the replacement home must occur within 2 years of one another. It does not matter which transaction occurs first, just that they occur within a 2-year period. It is also important to note that this benefit is not automatic. A qualifying property owner seeking to transfer their original home's tax base to their replacement home must file a claim form with our office in addition to any other documentation that may be required for particular program that they are applying for, like proof of age, certification of disability, etc. Finally, I would like to touch on a new program related to Proposition 19 base year value transfers, Senate Bill 989. Senate Bill 989 was signed into law on September 28th of this year and took effect immediately. It allows property owners that have sold their home, purchased a replacement home, and are waiting on review of their Proposition 19 base year value transfer claim to be completed to apply for deferment on their taxes. To apply for such deferment, a qualified property owner must file an application to request property tax deferment with the assessor's office within 1 year of receiving their first tax bill for the property and before January 1st, 2024. Deferment is not automatic. The deferment will last until property owner's Proposition 19 base year value transfer claim has either been approved or rejected. It is important to note that the Senate Bill 989 Property Tax Deferment Program only applies to situation in which the review of a property owner's Proposition 19 base year value transfer claim has not yet been completed. Property tax deferment is not available in situations in which the review of a property owner's Proposition 19 parent and child or grandparent-grandchild transfers exclusion claim has not been yet completed. Finally, deferment is not available for taxes paid through an impound mortgage account. We expect that there will be a great interest in Senate Bill 989's Property Tax Deferment Program. In anticipation, the Assessor's Office has added new material on the program to our Proposition 19 webpage. We encourage you to visit the Assessor's website if you have any additional questions or would like to obtain a copy of the deferment application. That concludes my remarks on Proposition 19 base year value transfers. If you have any questions about this program, Please visit our assessor resource tables after the presentation. Now Clarence will provide some information on Proposition 19 intergenerational transfers.
Thank you, RP. Good morning. My name is Clarence Amamera. I'm also a manager in the Assessor's Ownership Services Division. This morning, I will be providing an overview on the Proposition 19, intergenerational transfer exclusion, more commonly known as the parent-child or grandparent-grandchild exclusion. To make things simple, moving forward, I will discuss this program in terms of parent-child transfers. The parent-child transfer component of Proposition 19 came into effect on February 16, 2021. It made changes to existing programs that enabled parents to transfer their property to their children without a reassessment of the property. What changes did Proposition 19 make to existing law? First, under the old law, a parent could transfer their home to their child without any reassessment, no matter the value of the home. Additionally, a parent could transfer up to $1 million in other property, for example, rental property, vacation homes, etc., to their child without any reassessment. Now, under Proposition 19, the benefit only applies to the parent's home. There is no longer reassessment exclusion available for other property transferred from a parent to their child. That means if a parent owns a rental property or vacation home and transfers that property to their child, that property will be reassessed at full market value as of the date of the transfer. Proposition 19 has also made changes to the requirements for transfers of a parent's home to their child. Now, to obtain a Proposition 19 parent-child transfer exclusion, the child recipient of the home must move in and file a homeowner's exemption or disabled veterans exemption claim within 1 year of the parent-child transfer. This means that if a parent transfers their home to their child and the child does not move into the home and file for homeowners or disabled veterans exemption as required, the property will be reassessed at full market value as of the date of the transfer as well. Additionally, if the child recipient of the property who receives the exclusion later moves out of the home, the exclusion will be removed and the property's value will be adjusted to reflect full market value at the time of the parent-child transfer. Finally, Proposition 19 placed a limitation on the home value that a child may receive from their parent. As a rule of thumb, if the home is worth less than $1 million at the time of the transfer, the child recipient will be able to receive their parents' property tax base without any upward adjustment. However, if the home is worth more than $1 million at the time of the transfer, a calculation will need to be performed to determine whether or not an upward adjustment of the home's value is warranted, and if so, by how much. As RP mentioned earlier, there are Proposition 19 calculators on the assessor's website to assist you with such calculations. So in summary, to receive the Proposition 19 parent-child transfer exclusion, the recipient of their parent's home must, number one, file a Proposition 19 exclusion claim form, and number two, must move into the home within 1 year and file for a homeowners or the disabled veterans exemption. If these filing deadlines are not met, prospective relief may be granted in some cases. But to receive maximum relief, all of the criteria I mentioned must be met. Moving on to a related topic. Many times, parent-child transfers occur upon the death of the property-owning parent. Although the parent-child transfer exclusion is a relatively well-known benefit, most people don't know that when a property owner dies, the person responsible for handling their affairs, their spouse, executor, or successor trustee, needs to report that death to the assessor's office by completing and filing a change in ownership statement death of real property owner form. In most cases, that form is required to be provided to the assessor's office within 150 days of the property owner's death. Submitting the death of real property owner form is very important because timely notice ensures that our records can be updated and reflect the correct ownership of the property. It also may help prevent accrual of tax penalties and the generation of escape assessments, which may result in the issue of multiple prior year tax bills, for which payment is often due all at once. As property can be held in a variety of ways when the property owner passes away, it is important to note that a death of real property owner form is required to be filed with the assessor's office if the property is held in a trust and only one trustee passes away, or the property owner had a will, or the property did not have a will, or if the property is in probate. Finally, please note that the filing of death of real property owner form will inform the assessor's office that a transfer has taken place. If the recipient of the property believes that the transfer by which they acquired the property qualifies for an exclusion, for example, parent-child exclusion, they will also want to be sure to file appropriate claim forms for that exclusion. That concludes my remarks on Proposition 19, intergenerational transfers, and what to do when a property owner passes away. If you have any questions about these programs, please visit our assessor resource tables after the presentation. Thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, so at this point, we'd love to have provide a couple of minutes for questions from the audience regarding Proposition 19 and or the death of a property owner. Are there any questions from the audience? They're going to walk up a microphone to you. Just keep raising your hand.
Good morning. My question is for the intergenerational transfer, what evidence is needed for the assessor that the child moved into the primary residence?
The child must file a homeowner's exemption claim form within 1 year of the transfer.
That's the only thing that's needed? You don't need a bill or anything? Okay.
And on that homeowner's exemption claim form, we request for a social security number as well, just so you know.
Good morning. I have a question regarding the property. Let's say if it's husband and wife, the husband passed away, and the property is under trust. Do they need to report the property, something that you just saw earlier, that for that?
Yes, you always need to let assessor know by filing a change in ownership.
Even that?
Yes.
Okay, what if they don't? What is the consequence of not? Yeah.
There will be a penalty of not reporting of the death of the owner of the property.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So what of the property owners that died are non-relatives?
If the property owner is non-relative and the beneficiary or the heirs of the property is, for example, the nephew or niece, there will be no exclusion. So property will be subject to reassessment on the date of death of the owner of the property.
Can you talk a little bit about how the step-up basis affects, like the scenario that the gentleman was talking about before, where there's 5 different properties and so only one can inherit? So the step-up basis apply?
Parent and child transfer only applies with Proposition 19 to principal resident. No other properties are qualified for. So that means both parents and the children, they must live in the property in order to get these excluded.
But I think her question is, if in the event, if you have 5 properties and you want to will them over to 5 of your kids, or you have 5 kids, you want to give each one, you can no longer do that under Prop 19. You can only do one. And that one property has to be a principal residence. So let's say you want to will it over to Junior, but Junior lives in Cucamonga and the property's in Hacienda, he's got to move into Hacienda
But
within a year.
in terms of the step-up basis at the time of the passing? Do
Yes.
have a step-up
You have the
basis
year,
for
you have a
all-
year.
But do you have a step-up basis for all of the properties or only the?
Just the
properties?
one. The others are going to get reassessed.
Okay, I have a question. What happens if we have two owners on a property, they're not related, or they're ex-spouses, and they died at a different time? So how do you take care of that? How do you?
Well, if they're not related, of course, whoever died first, the one who passed away first, should file a change in ownership statement form
For the portion?
for that portion. And then, of course, we have to establish if there's exclusion for that, her or his portion. And then if that other owner passes away, then another change in ownership statement must be filed, because we need to change our records as well.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. Do you have a pamphlet, not a pamphlet, but a brochure that has all the forms ready? And also, do you have this electronically so that it can be electronically completed and signed? I think that'll make things a lot easier for most people.
All our forms are available in our website, but if you need just a paper form, we have it over there. But unfortunately, if we do have it in PDF format, but unfortunately, we do not require digital signature. It has to be wet signature.
Hi, good morning. I have a question. If the child moves into the principal residence and moves out in 6 months and it became an investment property again, so what happens?
We will go back and reassess the property as of the date of transfer.
What is the husband and wife on title they want to ask their son, daughter to it today? With the property being reassessed, and know the current owners are still on title?
Hello?
Sorry, can you repeat
Yes.
the question? There's a husband and wife living on the property. They want to add either a daughter or a son to the property now. They're going to stay on title, now they're all going to be joint tenants, husband and wife, and then a son, with the property being reassessed.
Usually with joint tenancies, no, but we still have to review the ownership in order to tell you 100% how. When they record the deed, the assessor's office need to review the chain of ownership.
Would it be just a P corp, or do you want to add the one your child to parent?
P corp and the deed, yes.
Okay.
All right, so if you have any further questions, our staff will be available over here at this side of the room. You can feel free to stop by and ask your questions after the presentation. We will now continue with the great panel regarding accessory dwelling units, or granny flats as some people call them, which has become a very hot topic in the world of real estate. Our panel is composed of experts in the topic, and I now welcome Carl Nadella, Senior Regional Planner with the Department of Regional Planning, Andrew Cache, Principal Civil Engineer Assistant with the Department of Public Works, Building and Safety, Carmelo Avila, Senior Civil Engineer Assistant with the Department of Public Works and Building and Safety, and our very own Jennifer Budsack, Director of District Appraisals with the Assessor's Office. Welcome. So now, each department will provide information as it relates to their agency, and after the presentations, I will moderate a discussion between our experts. The audience will then, after that, have an opportunity to ask questions to the panel. We'll first begin with Carl Nadella from Regional Planning.
All right, thank you, Aldo. Good morning, everyone. As Aldo mentioned, my name is Carl Nadella, and I'm the Senior Regional Planner for the Department of Regional Planning. Specifically, I work for the Puente Whittier Development Services section. So we handle pretty much the San Gabriel Valley area, the eastern parts of LA County, and the southeastern parts of LA County, which includes Hacienda Heights, Shoreline Heights, Avocado Heights, the Puente, and all the way down to Cerritos and Long Beach. So there are some unincorporated areas there as well. So my task today is to present to you the Department of Regional Planning's role in approving and processing accessory dwelling units. So first of all, we'll start with So we'll start with the definition. So what are ADUs, or accessory dwelling units? So as the name implies, they are dwelling units that are accessory to a residential use. So whether they're single-family residence or multi-family residence, whether they're a duplex or an apartment. So and although it sounds pretty simple, it actually counts for a lot. So they are an accessory to a primary residential use of the property. On the other hand, a JADU, or a junior ADU, is basically a smaller version of an ADU. They are no more than 500 square feet. They need to be contained within entirely within a single-family residence, including an attached garage. And the main difference of a JADU from an ADU is that the JADU can have no separate bathroom. They can use a bathroom from the main residence as long as they have interior access to that bathroom. So in terms of the number of ADUs or JADUs that you can have on your property, if you have a single family residence, you can have one attached ADU or a JADU, which by its nature is attached to a single family residence. However, if you are proposing a detached ADU, you can still have another attached ADU in addition to the detached ADU. For multi-family residences, you can have one attached ADU converted from the existing structure, or up to 25% of the existing dwelling units in the multi-family residence, whichever is greater. For example, if you have a 12-unit apartment, you can have up to 3 attached ADUs within the existing structure. And aside from that, a multi-family residence can also have 2 additional detached ADUs that are basically detached from the existing structure. So I'm going to go through a few different scenarios as to when ADUs can be allowed and what development standards are required for these ADUs. So the first scenario is a simple new attached ADU. So as you see from the diagram, the proposed ADU is attached to the existing single-family residence. In this case, the ADU needs to be at least 4 feet from the side and the rear property lines. So this example shows an existing garage that is being proposed to be converted into an ADU, as well as an addition to make the ADU larger. So as you see here, the existing garage can keep its existing setbacks, which in this case is 0 feet, but the addition needs to comply with current standards, which means it has to be at least 4 feet from the side and rear property lines, and at least 6 feet away from the main house. So this scenario shows a new detached ADU. Again, the proposed ADU needs to be at least 4 feet from the side and rear property lines. And in addition, the detached ADU needs to be at least 6 feet from the main residence. Also, as previously mentioned, an additional JADU or junior ADU can also still be allowed with a detached ADU. Okay, so for multi-family residential development, as previously mentioned, up to 2 detached ADUs can be allowed. The 2 ADUs can be attached to each other as long as they are detached from the main house or the main structure. Again, the ADUs need to be at least 4 feet from the side and rear property lines. And the detached ADU needs to be at least 6 feet from the main residential structure. Also, as previously mentioned, an additional attached ADU can also be allowed as long as it's converted from within existing structure of the existing multifamily residence. So here are a few useful detailed development standards to keep in mind. In general, the maximum size for an ADU is 1,200 square feet. Though the exception is for when addition is proposed as part of the ADU application. So if the property owner needs to expand the current residence in order to accommodate the ADU can only be up to 50% of the habitable area of the existing single-family residence, or at least 800 square feet, whichever is less. So in terms of maximum height for the proposed ADUs, the most important numbers to remember is 25 feet for single-family residences and 16 feet for multi-family residences. In practice, though, we've had quite a few problems with the 16 feet maximum for multi-family residences. There is a new state law that will increase this a little bit to 18 feet starting next year. But for now, it is still at 16 feet for ADUs as part of multi-family residences. There's also another exception where if the single-family residence is located near a state scenic highway, then the maximum height is 18 feet. And if there are any community standards districts that require a lower maximum height, the lower figure will apply. So as previously mentioned, the general required setbacks required for ADUs are 4 feet from the side and rear property lines. The front yard setback is generally 20 feet, which is the countywide front yard requirements, unless there are other specifications by a community standards district, a specific plan, or a setback district. However, again, these do not apply to existing structures. Any structures that were legally built, such as a garage, carport, or storage area, will be able to be converted into an ADU and keep their existing setbacks. A common example of this, as shown in the diagram, is our old garages were built with 0 setbacks, from either the side or rear property lines. So these old garages can be converted into ADUs and keep their existing setbacks as originally approved. So the property owner will just have to show us building permit records or assessor's records from the past that shows that these structures were legally built, and will allow them to be converted into an ADU with their existing setbacks. So one of the primary reasons where an ADU may not be allowed in a property is if it's located within a very high fire hazard severity zone. So in this case, it's not allowed unless the property owner can show that it has 2 means of access to a highway. So if you look at here on the screen, house number 1 is located in a cul-de-sac and doesn't have 2 separate access to a highway down in the south. So an ADU will not be permitted with house number 1. But if you look at house number 2, it can show that it has 2 separate means to the highway, whether it turns right or turns left. So an ADU will be allowed in the scenario of house number 2. House number 3 has direct access to the highway. So in this case, the ADU will also be allowed in house number 3. So this is one of the main things that we look at to find out whether or not your property is in a very high fire hazard severity zone. For those that are tech savvy, you can look at our website. We do have an interactive GIS system, or if not, you can contact our office and we'll look at our GIS system to find out if you are within this very high fire hazard severity zone. So in terms of parking, in most cases, no parking is required for ADUs. Again, the only exception is if the property is located in a very high fire hazard severity zone. In this case, 1 parking space will be required, unless there are certain scenarios where the parking requirement can be waived. So this includes whether the ADU has no bedroom, or it meets certain size restrictions, or if the property is located within a half-mile radius of a public transit, or there's a car sharing service on the same block, among many others. And finally, one quick but very important note: if you're converting a garage or a carport into an ADU, you won't need to provide replacement parking. So a few quick additional notes on JADUs. Again, the main difference between a JADU and just a small attached ADU is that a JADU may not have its own bathroom, but can use a bathroom in the main house that it has interior access to. As such, the JADU is subject to a couple of additional restrictions, which include that the JADU must be either the JADU or the main residence must be owner occupied. or it's also not permitted if the property is owned by a corporation or an LLC. And to enforce these restrictions, a JADU covenant is required. And the main points of these will be, as mentioned, a prohibition on the sale of the JADU separate from the main house, restrictions on the size of the JADU, and that the JADU or the main residence must be owner occupied unless the property is owned by a government agency, a land trust, or a housing organization. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. These are our contact details. Again, this is for the Puente Whittier Development Services section, which handles Hacienda Heights, the San Gabriel Valley, and the eastern, southeastern parts of LA County. We do have a booth as well at the back, so please feel free after the presentation to come up to us and ask detailed questions if you have them. With that, I'll turn it over to the Department of Public Works.
Good morning, everyone. I work for Building and Safety. Today we're going to go over about our role in ADUs. My name is Carmelo Avila, and today Andrew Miche will be also be part of this presentation. So what does Los Angeles County Building and Safety Division do? It provides building permits, review, and monitoring of the designs, construction, installation, demolition, and maintenance of privately owned buildings and structures with the enforcement of the county building codes and regulations. Also, building services are provided to unincorporated communities at the Public Works headquarters and 11 different building and safety district offices serving unincorporated communities, including 13 contract city offices serving incorporated cities. These offices are staffed by highly professional, knowledgeable, and customer service-oriented staff. For more information, please visit us at our website, dpw.la.county/building and safety. I want to point out that this website is very important since it has helpful links like Service Locator and Epic LA. So what is Service Locator? The first question that you need to ask yourself is that if you belong in an unincorporated or incorporated jurisdiction. So by using this link, you will type in your address and it will notify you under what jurisdiction you are in. It will also provide you with your local building district office, contact information, utility providers, school district, and more. Perhaps at this time, you already know that you're under an unincorporated area since you maybe already had applied with Department of Regional Planning. However, anyone that is thinking of building an EDU, anyone there in the audience that doesn't know where to start, I suggest go to Service Locator, type in your address, know where's your local building district office, give us a call, visit us, and we'll be more than happy to help you through the process. Now, what is Epic LA? So Epic LA is our main website where you're going to be applying for a building permit. Keep in mind that when you're going to apply for an ADU, you're going to have to apply for additional permits such as your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and also sewer permits. This platform also, this is where you're going to be paying all your invoices and also scheduling inspections. Now, we're going to go more in depth about the submittal requirements and ADU procedure and helpful hints. So the minimum plan submittal requirements. Accessory dwelling unit identifies the minimum required documents necessary to complete a building permit application for a plan check. So as a building plan checker, what I look for a complete set of plans is that consists of three main things. Your architectural, that has your site plan, your floor plan, roof elevations, and cross sections and elevations. Secondly is your structural. We want the foundation and framing plan. And lastly, energy calculations. So So energy calculations will let us know what type of insulation you want, your ceiling, and perhaps your roof rafters will need. So we recommend to hire a design professional to avoid any unnecessary delays during plan review and inspection. It is best to consult with a design professional knowledgeable of local building codes and ordinances to assist you in designing and preparing a complete plan set to submit to the local building and safety office. In addition, when applying for a building permit, you will receive an agency list. So this agency list, you must obtain all clearances from different departments based on the scope of work and square footage. It's either you're gonna do a garage conversion, an attached ADU, or a detached ADU. One thing that I wanna point out is that to start with Los Angeles County Department of Regional Planning. The reason is that first you wanna ask if it's feasible to build an ADU on your property. What are the zoning requirements? What are the height limitations? What are your setbacks? I suggest to start with regional planning prior to applying for a building permit. Another agency is school district developer fees. So any square footage of habitable that is greater than 500 square feet, you're subject to school fees. For example, if you're doing a garage conversion, typically their size is 20 by 20, 400 square feet. No school fees apply. If it's going to be 600 square feet, then it does apply. Sometimes the single family gets converted, part of the single family gets converted into an ADU. For example, if it's 2,000 square feet and the ADU is 600 square feet. In that case, no school fees apply because it's already a habitable space. If you have any questions, I suggest to talk with your building plan checker if you have any questions regarding the agencies. Now, we're going to go over the building permit process overview. So the first step is to apply for a building permit and epic it. Okay? Depending on what type of construction you're going to build your ADU, it's either going to be, if it's an attached ADU or a garage conversion, you're going to apply under an addition alteration permit. If it's going to be a detached ADU, it's going to be under a new construction permit. So if you don't have an account in Epic Elite, it's very easy. It's like creating a Facebook or an Instagram account. Once you create your account, upload your complete set of plans to Epic Elite, one of our staff members will determine if it's a complete submittal. If it is, you will receive an invoice. Once the invoice is paid, then you just have to wait until the building plan checker checks your plan set. In the meantime, also, you will receive an agency list. Like I mentioned before, please take care of the agencies as soon as possible. Now, plan check review. Plans are reviewed for general compliance with minimum building structural provisions of the adopted codes and ordinances. At this stage, you're going to be going back and forth with the building plan checker until your plans are ready to be approved. The building plan checker will make sure that your plans comply with the current building standards, it's structurally safe, and complies with the California energy standards. Now, permit issuance. Once the building plans have been approved for general compliance and all agency clearances have been obtained and approved, permits are issued and construction work can start. So once you have an approved set of plans, all your agencies are cleared, you can pull permit and you can start construction. So who can pull permit? Permits are issued based on regulations established by the Contractor State Licensing Board. Permits may be issued directly to a licensed contractor or homeowners, such as owner-builder. It is highly recommended to hire a licensed contractor to pull permits unless you're knowledgeable about construction. Mistakes can be costly and take additional time to repair or correct. So homeowners, if you're planning to pull permit as homeowner and builder, you're acting as a contractor. You're responsible to schedule inspections, order material, and worst thing is that if anything happens at the job site, you're 100% liable. We have a pamphlet in our booth where we can provide you this for the risk of homeowner pulling permit. We're almost there. Second to last, once you pull permit, you're gonna receive a job card. Now, you're gonna have to go through the inspection phase. So depending on the construction of the ADU, it's either you're gonna have, for example, a brand new detached ADU, you're gonna have to start with inspections at your footings, putting your rebar, your anchor bolts. Once that step is done, perhaps maybe also plumbing. Each phase, you have to receive a sign-off, okay? When all your electrical, mechanical, plumbing, everything is installed, you'll get a sign-off to drywall and patch it. Once you receive all building inspection finals, you're gonna have a building final, meaning that you have accomplished all the construction phases. Once you have that building final, our building official will provide you with a certificate of occupancy. That certificate means that your structure complies with the current building standards and it's safely to be occupied. So I just want to emphasize, I want to go through the whole process. Upload a complete set of plans, pay your invoice. In the meantime, you're waiting for your building plans to be plan checked. Do your agencies as soon as possible. So at the time when you have approved set of plans, all agencies have been cleared, you can pull permit at the same time. Once you pull permit, you can start construction, go through the inspection phases, get your building final, and at the end, we'll provide you with a certificate of occupancy. Now, I'm gonna pass it to Andrew Cachet, and he will go over more information and helpful hints regarding ADUs.
So an accessory dwelling unit is defined by the building code as follows. An attached or detached residential dwelling unit that provides complete independent living facilities for one or more persons that is located on a lot with a proposed or existing primary residence. An accessory dwelling units shall provide permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation on the same parcel as a single family or multi-family dwelling is or will be situated. So some common construction options include, but are not limited to, conversions of existing garages, converting portions of the existing dwelling unit or a single family residence. An example of that would be adding a second kitchen to your residence, constructing a new addition to the existing structure or dwelling to act as the ADU, or a ground-up new construction of a detached dwelling unit on an existing lot. So this would essentially be a second home in addition to your primary home. Some general design considerations that you want to take into account when you're planning your new ADU project would be for attached units, fire resistance ratings, and which would conventionally be a full complete separation from your single family residence to your ADU. You need to provide separate heating systems. So both the ADU and the main house must have separate heating systems for each one. Sewer connections, they also need to be separated. They tend to meet somewhere close to the lateral, but they still need to be separated. And then you also need to consider, per the Energy Code, the mandatory PV and solar installation requirements for new construction detached ADUs. So some helpful hints that I want to provide you with. Publications available to you that are available to us in the back at our resource table over there. Accessory dwelling unit guidelines. So this is an in-depth guide including a series of frequently asked questions, providing helpful information on the construction requirements pertaining to accessory dwelling units. We also have the County of Los Angeles Residential Code, wood frame provisions. So this is more or less a detailed reference handout outlining and depicting the basic construction design and requirements based on minimum requirements of the California or Los Angeles County residential code for one-story conventional frame and construction. This will outline more or less the fire life safety requirements in the code, the minimum room and ceiling dimensions that you're allowed to have, underfloor ventilation, attic ventilation, and electrical and energy mandatory measures. For a complete list of all our handouts available to you, please visit our website at dpw.lacounty.gov/psd/content/publications, or feel free to visit us at our resource table. I would now like to introduce the Office of the Assessor.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Budbeck. I'm the Director of District Appraisals for the Office of the Assessor. So this morning you've heard from Regional Planning and Public Works about ADU building requirements. So how does this new construction impact your property taxes? Before I get into the assessor's role, here's a little more added background. In recent years, we've seen a major increase in the interest and construction of ADUs. Some property owners see them as investment opportunities and a possible solution to our affordable housing challenges. And others just realize the need for more space or additional living quarters for their family members or friends. Historically, building a duplex or additional units on your property has been common for property zoned for multifamily housing. However, recently passed legislation has been intended to encourage development for more housing, including ADUs. Los Angeles County has over half its residential land dedicated to single-family zoning, so we expect this new construction trend to continue. This large increase in ADU construction and conversion has been overwhelming, and much more information is now needed so that property owners can plan for these additions effectively and wisely. So, how does the assessor's office fit into all of this? Well, the building of and sometimes the alteration of an existing structure to be used as an ADU is considered new construction for property assessment purposes. When new construction, such as the addition of new residential units, occurs, the property will be reassessed. A reassessment due to new construction does not mean your whole property will be reassessed. Instead, the cost to construct the ADU is used to establish its value. That value is then added to the existing assessed value of the land and other structures on the property. The result is a new base year value for the entire property upon which future taxes will be based. Generally, new construction is assessed using the cost methodology. The cost used by the assessor's office may not necessarily be your costs, but rather standardized regional costs that are typical of materials used for the quality of construction. An ADU can be attached or detached from the main dwelling. No matter how small, it does require a kitchen, bathroom, sewer connection, and permits. Now, in general, replacing what is already there is not considered new construction. However, if you are altering a garage by adding the features necessary to convert it to an ADU, such as kitchen or bathroom, there will be an upward assessment. The increase in property taxes come after the whole permitting process, but it does catch many people by surprise. And that's why proper planning is so important. Let me give you a quick example. If you construct an ADU and it adds $100,000 to the overall value of your property taxes will increase approximately $1,000 a year, or 1% of the added value to the property. However, you should also estimate about another 0.25% of the added value to account for direct assessments such as sewer fees. Generally, the higher cost incurred for the construction, the higher the added tax will be. So, building an ADU can be a complex and daunting process, but we hope this example helps you understand some of the implications of building an ADU that you should consider beforehand. For more information on how ADUs or new construction impact your property, our assessor's team is available to assist you at our resource tables. Please come on by to ask your questions. We will be happy to assist you and guide you. And that concludes my presentation on ADUs.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you very much, everyone else. We'll now continue to our moderated panelist session. So I'm going to be throwing the first question. Are there any zones where ADUs are not permitted?
All right, so that sounds like a planning question. So again, the most important thing to think about ADUs is that it's an accessory dwelling unit that's incidental to a main residential use. So to answer your question, you have to think about where these residential uses are allowed or not allowed. So basically, if the zone allows a single-family residence or a multi-family residence, the ADU will be allowed in that property. Conversely, if the zone doesn't allow a single-family residence or a multi-family residence, then the ADU will not be allowed on that property. So specifically, the most common zone where residences are not allowed are industrial zones, but there are also a few like open space zones, watershed zones. But pretty much, as per the new state law, they have expanded where ADUs can be allowed. So all of the residential zones, as well as commercial zones, will allow an ADU at this point.
Thank you very much, Carl. Now, can a property owner rent out their ADU through apps like Airbnb? I know in this community, Airbnb has been popular. So can you answer that question, someone?
So the short answer is no, but not because it's an Airbnb, but because the rental requirement. So an ADU can be rented out, but only for 30 consecutive days or more. So, and that applies to any sort of rental agreements, whether it's through Airbnb or through a rental agreement with any person. So as long as it's 30 consecutive days or more, it will be allowed. But if it's less than that, then a rental of an ADU will not be allowed.
Thank you, Carl. Next question. Do I need to obtain a separate address for my ADU?
So it is optional, but if it's desired, you can apply for one. You can apply for one through Epic LA under the search engine. Just type in address request. But depending on the configuration of the ADU, for example, if it's the ADU is in a corner lot, let's say the main house is facing Hacienda Street and the ADU is facing La Puente Street, then in that scenario, you must request a new address.
Thank you so much. Next question, it's a related question. Do I have to install a separate utility meter or separate main service panel for my ADU?
So it is optional. If you're gonna go with either Edison for a separate electric meter, then a new address is required. Same thing for SoCal Gas. For a separate water meter, you have to contact your local water provider and see if a water meter is required.
Thank you, Carmelo. Now I'm gonna direct this question to Jennifer. When the assessor assesses a newly constructed ADU, is the square footage added by that ADU counted towards the square footage of the residence?
The square footage is counted only when it's a junior ADU. A junior ADU is a structure built within the main residence. The other criteria is a junior ADU must be 500 square feet or less. Then the assessor counts that in the main residence. Otherwise, if you build a separate detached ADU, the separate detached ADU is not counted in the square footage of the main residence.
Thank you, Jennifer. And a follow-up question, will the square footage cost used to calculate the value of my main residence be used to calculate the value of my ADU?
If the quality of the ADU is generally similar to the main dwelling, we may use similar cost tables. However, ADU cost adjustments may differ from the main residence. After you pull your permit for an ADU, the assessor will send you a new construction statement asking you to tell us what construction you did and how much it cost for all your bathroom or kitchen adds. And that's an important tool for us to reference how much we will use for your costs.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Now, are ADUs allowed if a property is part of a homeowners association? Can someone help me answer that question?
I can take that question. So the short answer is yes. So state law has preempted a lot of local jurisdictions restrictions on building ADUs, and that includes homeowners associations restrictions as well. So yes, you will be able to build an ADU even if you're within a homeowners association. You may still want to check with your homeowners association though, and their deed of restrictions if there are other restrictions that may need to be followed when you're building your ADU. But in general, the answer is yes, you can still build an ADU even if you're within a homeowners association.
Thank you, Carl. This question is for Jennifer. Can the assessor accept evidence regarding the actual cost to construct an ADU for value verification purposes if those costs are less than the assessor's cost figures?
Well, it depends. For new construction valuation purposes, we typically use a cost appraisal methodology. This includes direct costs such as materials and labor, but we also include indirect costs, such as engineers and architects' fees, permits, and contractor fees. We will review the homeowner's cost and determine if it meets the market rate criteria for the quality of construction. So in some instances, we may accept the homeowner's costs.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. And finally, considering solar panels are now very popular in the state of California, do I need to install solar on my ADU?
So this is really going to come down to what kind of ADU that you want to build. When it comes to solar, the code requires that any new construction, what I mean by new construction is ground up, right? So you're trenching new footings, you're trenching a new slab, so anything ground up, the energy code will mandate that solar will be a requirement to be installed prior to your certificate of occupancy. So if you're having a garage conversion or you're building an addition to attach your ADU, you will not be mandated to add solar. That will be completely optional based on the construction method that you're using, for however best suits you.
Thank you very much. Great information. Who's ready to build an ADU in their backyard now? Yeah, no one? Okay. At this point, we'll take some questions from the audience. Please give us a second to get the microphones to you guys.
With the increase of ADUs in some of the suburbs, there should be an increase in vehicles as well. What are some of the solutions being considered for the influx of vehicles in those areas in regards to parking?
That's a really tough question. And you're right, I think that's one of the effects, especially as I mentioned that when you're converting a garage into an ADU, no replacement parking is required. And then when you're building an ADU, no parking is required. So that is one of the main concerns from planning as well, because it does increase the off-site parking that will be that will be needed to address the influx of residents in our single-family residential areas. So it is a complex planning question, and I think and that's something we've raised as well when we first heard about the ADU ordinance coming from the state. So that's an ongoing discussion. I mean, in general, the things that can be looked at is better access to transit, for example, car sharing, those kinds of things. But I think the best thing I can think of though is when I heard from our people who are closely monitoring what's going on at the state is that they just wanted to try this as part of a solution to address the shortage of housing in the state. And I think they'll look back at all of this, I think in about 10 years and see how everything's worked out. And then if, they'll try to address any of these other concerns that are being, that may have been caused or are unintended consequences with these new developments. But yes, that is indeed a problem, and we're trying to find novel and new way solutions to try to address those. But yeah, it's something that we're struggling with every day.
Yeah. Okay. If we have to file a building permit from you, does that mean we don't have to file building permit with our city?
Well, first, you could use our service locator website, type in your address, and see if you're unincorporated, belonging to the county, or you're incorporated, belonging to a city, like city of Pasadena, city of Los Angeles. So go in there, type in your address. If you are incorporated, then you have to apply a permit with us.
And that was Epic LA, correct?
Service locator. Service locator. No, you will have to apply under one of our local district offices within LA County.
And maybe I can add to that. So if you are within an incorporated city, then you will also not go through regional planning. You will have to go through the local planning department of that city. So that it takes you through a completely different path.
Thank you. And this event has been wonderful. Thank you. The question I had was, if you're doing garage conversions, you were talking about the setback and about you need to find a permit to show how things are built. Well, I don't know if last time you checked, a lot of records are very hard to find. Original permits of garages and houses and things like that. So how are you guys dealing with that? I mean, I looked at a property. The building doesn't exist. It was built 100 years ago, but there is a building there.
So we basically go with the best good faith effort in finding those historical documents. So again, the best document would be a historical building permit or assessor's record. But if not, we do try as well to look at some of our old aerial photos, things like that. So if there's a reasonable determination that the building was there and was legally built, then we can use that and proceed with keeping the setbacks for those structures.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm with Help You Legal, and I'm myself a homeowner. Me and my husband were thinking of doing an ADU for our home. Is there a limit of people that could reside at the ADU, either maximum or minimum?
So with that, our standard code applies. So if it's a family, at least planning will not regulate the number of people because those are related, but you may have to check with building and safety, I think, and I don't know if fire has occupancy standards, maximum occupancy. But for us, if it's a family, we can't regulate the number of people. But if they're not related, let's say they're being rented out to different people, they can be rented out up to 4 unrelated people.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for giving a brief overview of AD. I'm a general contractor, so I feel quite a few of these structures, and it was quite a tedious and laborious process. And thanks for answering my question on new structures. You need solar panels on when you're constructing an ADU. The question I have is the first gentleman. I have got a proposal from a homeowner who are residing in an 80-unit homeowner associations. And his suggestion to me is, Mr. Lee, can you come and convert all these garages into a rental unit, because it will be a financial incentive for the individual homeowners. And that was the first time I was raised a question like that. And according to this gentleman, he says it's okay. One of the things that, as I said, I studied this, that in the old days, they have to have a requirement for parking replacement. And even the setback, it used to be 5 feet, now it's 24 feet. Why do you think that it's okay to have, let's say, the whole HOA, 80 units, but everybody wants to have a rental unit at the downstairs garage? Where are they going to park the car? Where's the new person going to park their car? And if that's the case, they don't want to park outside. They want to park inside. I can't even drive to work in the morning if all these people do it. So I was wondering whether you guys have thought about that. The other thing that I got very frustrated is when I go to the city and apply permit, out of 10, 3 or 4 is ADUs, and I do big construction and build new houses. And it doesn't seem that you guys have enough staff to handle all our requests, especially when ADU come up. Before, when I submit a plan or something, I can talk to the plan checker and say, Mr. Lee, we'll see you next week. We have this thing ready. Now they say, I'll see you in 2 months. I say, why? Because he said, we have all new application coming in. What am I supposed to do? And homeowner in the meantime is patient person on me. Hey, I gave you this thing, 2 weeks ago, and how come it's not ready? It's only like 2 months into the process. So I hope you guys hire more stuff. It was even worse when I was during a pandemic stage. The inspector won't even come up. Thank you. A little bit frustration, sorry.
We'll take one more question.
Well, yes, I guess I can say I agree with you. And I actually, we do feel your frustration as well. So first of all, with regards to the parking, as I've mentioned, we do see it as a problem. Because then, as you're saying, then if everyone does the exact same thing and builds their garage into an ADU, then where are these people going
I think to stop it in a HOA community, because I have hundreds doing outside repair.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot of other scenarios as well where that concern arises. The short answer is, unfortunately, that's what the state is saying, and that's really beyond our control. So all we can do is raise our concerns to the state, which we have been doing. So the state is still looking into this, but at this point, that's the rule of the game that we're playing with, and there really is no leeway with regard to that. So if they want to convert their garage into an ADU, we have to approve them, and we have to approve them with no replacement parking. With regards to the staffing, yes, our department has actually had a lot of turnover in the past few months, and unfortunately it has led to a lot of lag time in processing, especially ADUs. Just to let you know, we are supposed to review them within 60 days. That's our goal. We are unfortunately not meeting those right now. But our management is aware. They are trying to speed up the hiring of more people in the next few weeks, actually. That's what they're saying. So we're hoping to get more reinforcements with regards to that, but we are feeling your frustration as well.
Yeah, I can touch on that too. I just want to let everybody know here that the Department of Public Works is committed to serving you. And any one of our district offices, you're more than welcome to walk in. You're more than welcome to pick up the phone or visit our website. And I can speak for Carmelo and myself and on behalf of the whole department that we are doing our best. We are getting a very, very significant influx of ADUs and other projects that we have, but we are working on ramping up our staff, and like I said, we are committed to getting those out to you and as timely as possible. So, just bear with us. We are here to serve you, and we will do everything we can to assist you.
Vince Veneziano. If a homeowner, okay, this building, it's already built with a permit, but it's built as a studio, and whatever, and some built some behind the grid. Right now, it's a property with registered 2 units, but really the owner is renting like 4 units there. Where to start to, since those buildings they are already built with permit as a student, so they have a permit in the city. Where to legalize as a unit now?
So you definitely should start with us with planning. And we'll have to separate the two things that you're asking about. So first is we look at the number of legally established units that you have there. So I think what you're saying is you have 2 legal units there. So with that, we will look at it as a multi-family residence. And the scenarios I pointed out will apply. So you can get an ADU for each of those 2 units. And then if they are detached, you can convert one of the existing structure into a junior ADU. So that's the first step, to look at the number of actual units. And then in terms of the actual structure itself, so any of those actual structures that were permitted, whether were part of a quote-unquote unit or not, they can be converted into an attached ADU or a junior ADU within their existing setbacks. But yeah, in terms of the number of units or ADUs that you will be allowed, we're looking at the 2 primary residence plus 2 accessory dwelling units that are detached, and then 1 attached ADU from within the existing structure.
Thank you to our amazing panel. Let's give it up for them. So I heard a couple of things today that were really exciting. I heard jobs for all departments. So if you're looking for a job in the future, these are the departments that are going to be looking for people. I'm also ready to build an ADU. I just don't know about the how to finance the construction of an ADU. And I know there's some couple of amazing community partners here that are providing information, so feel free to check them out. I would also like to remind you that if you need a copy of our slides, they will be available on the assessor's website. That is assessor.lacounty.gov. And finally, I'd like to make an announcement about surveys. We would love to improve our events in the future, so please help us by providing your feedback. We have staff who will be walking around with surveys. So please grab one for them and fill them out.
Raise your hand if you not get a survey.
And so this concludes our formal program. Thank you so much for attending the 2022 Fall Homeowners Resource Fair. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Hehehe